Please, Rosie, I need this. My staff is kind of broken. I live in a hotel. I want to get the fuck out.
So guys, after almost 2 years, Hazbin Hotel Season 2 is here. And if I'm being honest, it kind of sucks. Nah, I'm just playing. Yeah, this might be shocking to the people that for whatever reason think I hate Hazbin, but I've actually been really enjoying season 2 for the most part. The voice acting is still top tier, the animation quality is drastically better, and I'm one of the people that actually thought season 1 looked pretty good for the most part. And on top of all that, I feel like the story's flowing way better this time around than what it was in season 1. And while I was initially waiting to do a more in-depth breakdown on season 2 like I did for season 1 a couple months ago, but there have been a couple conversations in the fandom that have been flowing online that if you follow me on TikTok, you know I've been speaking on. And funny enough, one of them is Hazbin Hotel's fraud problem. You see, over the last 4 episodes, there has been a lot of criticism towards Hazbin when it comes to how the show writes its strong characters, or at least the characters that the audience is supposed to perceive as strong or powerful. And when I realized that this conversation wasn't just a one-off TikTok that I seen and that a lot of people were actually talking about this, it made me really sit back and think, they actually have a point. Because don't get me wrong, I'm not some anime bro power scale or anything like that. I've never really cared about how strong the overlords in hell were compared to normal sinners. But based off of the last 4 episodes, there's actually some genuine criticism as to how serious the audience can take some of these characters going forward. So I want to dig a little bit deeper into that. Now, if you don't know, the criticism is really centered around 3 characters this season: Alastor, Lucifer, and Charlie. And I want to start off with Alastor first because he kind of sparked off this entire conversation. This all started after the release of episode 4, the episode where we learn about Alastor's backstory, we learn about his deal with Rosie, and he comes up with this plan to get publicly humiliated and become Vox's prisoner. Now, I kid you not when I say this episode did so much damage to Alastor as a character for how fans perceive him. And it's not because it was a bad episode by any means. Like, literally before episodes 5 and 6 came out, I would have said that this was the best episode all season. I think in the TikTok that I made, I literally did say it was the best episode from 1 through 4. From the songs to the animation to the actual enjoyability of the episode, great. It's a fantastic episode. But the problem with this episode came when you thought about how Alastor was treated in this episode compared to how the show has wanted us to perceive him up until this point. The show has always wanted you to feel like Alastor is one of the most powerful characters in any room that he walks into. I always say this, I don't know how canon the pilot is to the actual show. It seems like it's pretty canon, but in the pilot, he was introduced as like the boogeyman, a being of pure evil. I think they said he took out like 13 overlords and had their screams broadcasting all over hell. And even in the main series, the show still wants you to believe that Alastor's this strong, powerful character. I mean, when a bunch of sinners show up to attack the hotel, they have him single-handedly take out all of them, and before he does it, he says this:
"Now, my dear, leave it to me. It's time I remind everyone why I am here."
On top of that, when Adam pulls up with the angel army to take out the hotel, we get this intentional shot of Alastor pulling up and putting a force field around the hotel to take out the angels. Once again, another attempt of the show trying to get the audience to perceive Alastor as strong. But the problem is, the show doesn't actually show that Alastor is this strong character that they want us to believe he is. They tell us that he's strong.
Seemingly overnight, he began to topple overlords who had been dominant for centuries. That kind of raw power had never been harnessed by a mortal soul before.
Dear, if I wanted to hurt anyone here, I would have done so already.
So, I've been thinking, Alastor, with your incredible power...
You really thought being the most powerful sinner, which you are.
But the show doesn't actually show us that Alastor's strong. Like, yeah, we saw him take out those sinners, but I'm pretty sure everyone else in the hotel could have did that too. We literally saw them take out an army of angels. Those overlords that Alastor took out in the pilot that was mentioned, we never get to see that. And the one time Alastor has a fight against a character that we know for sure is strong, he loses to Adam. And the problem isn't even that he lost his fight. Obviously, like Rosie said, it would be a big thing for Alastor to win against an archangel. The problem is the show literally has him get steamrolled by Adam. So we have this character that you've spent the entire time hyping up as if he's strong, and then the one time he goes up against another character that's perceived as strong, he loses horribly. So much to the point where he's still injured a season later. Which brings me to season 2 episode 4, because in this episode, Alastor Alastor loses another fight, this time to the V's, and ends up having to have Nifty and Husk come save him, or at least buy him enough time to make a deal with Vox. And yes, I know Alastor was injured and it's 3-on-1, I understand that, but the problem is once again how the show makes him look. From everything they've done in season 1, they've already made Alastor look weak, and this fight with the V's just adds more fuel to the fire. Not to mention, because of this episode, we actually have more scenes of Alastor being humiliated than him actually looking like a powerful character. And because of this, I've seen so much discourse online of people saying that Alastor's a fraud, that they can't take him serious, that he hasn't done anything to show that he's a powerful character. I mean, after this episode came out, a bunch of anime fans literally started an entire movement where they just started making memes about Alastor being this fraudulent character. And the thing that makes it so weird is that everything in the story could worked perfectly if they would have just showed Alastor doing anything to reinforce the narrative that he is this strong sinner. The fight against Adam wouldn't have looked so bad if he would have taken out a strong character earlier in the season. Maybe he could have taken out an Overlord at the Overlord meeting just for the fun of it, like they said he did in the pilot. And the fight against the V's wouldn't look so bad if he wasn't consistently on the back foot. Obviously he's injured, I'm not saying he has to win a 3v1, but at least have him strong enough that he takes out Valentino and Velvet, and then have Vox come in at the last minute and back him into a corner. That would have been much better than having him look weak the entire time. Now the next criticism is centered around the character Lucifer, because in episode 5 we learned that Lucifer has a curse around him where he actually cannot harm any sinner in hell. And when he goes to confront Vox to basically try to scare him, because Vox knows about the curse, he's not scared, and despite being the most powerful being in hell, Lucifer can't really do anything to him. Now there are two main perspectives that I've seen when it comes to the reveal of this curse. The first one being that it's bad writing, and the second one kind of ties back to Alastor, with people saying that Hazbin is kind of just making all of their strong characters weak all of a sudden for plot. Now here's the thing, I actually don't think Lucifer's curse is bad writing. I actually think it's a pretty clever way to write him out of solving all of the problems in hell. I actually think it's kind of a clever idea that Lucifer, who's supposed to be the sin of pride, at least in this show, who created sin, is now forced to watch all of the sinners, all of the people that he created for all of eternity, and he can't do anything about it. The problem I do have with the show though is the way it was introduced, because I've seen a couple videos of people saying that the audience assumed that Lucifer had all this power, when in reality the show never reinforced that. The problem I have with that statement though is the show kinda did want you to believe that Lucifer had all of this power and that he was this all-powerful being in hell. I mean, his first couple lines in Hell's Greatest Dad is literally, looks like you could use some help from the big boss of hell himself. And then he proceeds to talk about how powerful he is and how he can take all of Charlie's worries away. There's literally a section where he's trying to win Charlie over from Alastor, and he's like, why would you want to work with him when there's no substitute for pure angelic power, talking about himself. And if anything, I feel like it would have made more sense to reveal Lucifer's curse in the very first episode where we meet him, because it was clear from his first introduction that he hated sinners and didn't want to be bothered with them, but he would just kind of say things like, oh yeah, sinners, they don't listen and they're just evil people at their core. He never really explained a real reason why he didn't like them though. And when he's talking to Charlie and Charlie's like, why won't you help me, he kind of just comes off as a bad dad. I feel like if he would have told Charlie in that moment that he's not able to harm sinners, and because he's not able to harm sinners, they basically have free will, and with the free will that they have, they choose to act the way they act for all of eternity, which shows their true nature, I feel like that would have been a good opposing argument to what Charlie's argument is for sinners reforming. And it would have seemed like he had a real reason to be against the hotel, or to not really believe Charlie that sinners can reform. But even if they didn't want to introduce it like that, I feel like the information that Lucifer can't harm sinners is a really big deal, and yet the way they dropped the information was just so casual, like it was basically nothing. Bro, I literally had to rewind the scene because I was like, wait, did I hear that right? Now the final person receiving criticism is Charlie, and it's not really that she did anything, but that's kind of why she's receiving criticism. When you look at the hierarchy of the strongest characters in hell, Charlie is supposed to be in the top 3. Now I don't know how she really compares to Lilith. I've seen some people say that she's actually second to Lucifer, but if we're going by that logic, it makes it even worse. The main criticism is that despite being one of the strongest beings in all of hell, Charlie never uses her powers. And look, do people expect Charlie to go around smiting sinners and forcing them to do things against their will? No, that is completely against her character and how she's written. But the way she's portrayed in a majority of the show she's usually shown to be helpless, just as helpless as a common sinner, sometimes even more, despite the fact that she is a morning star. And I guess most people wouldn't have a problem with this if it was pretty consistent, but then we get moments in the show where Charlie flashes her powers stepping up to overlords, and it's just kind of hard to take her serious because we've seen so many moments of her not really being competent and not using her powers. I mean, the amount of memes I've seen of people saying things like, oh Charlie, you know you have powers, you know you could get yourself out of this situation, right? It's actually hilarious. And look, are any of these things actually detrimental to the plot or, you know, enjoying season 2? Not really, but I do think it is kind of a valid critique that all these powerful characters, or so-called powerful characters, are nerfed in some way, shape, or form. But let me know what y'all think. Like I said, once season 2 is over, I'll make a full in-depth video about it where I really go over everything and all my thoughts. But until then, thanks for checking out another one. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and until then, it's been your boy Corin, and I'm off this.